Hello, welcome along this Thursday afternoon. I'm Matthew Tucker and I am at Quintech. I'm an MSP and we provide everything that you can possibly imagine in terms of MSP provision. So whether it's computers, laptops, whether it's networking, security, cybersecurity, etc. That is what we do. So if you have an interest, then don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Today, we're going to be looking at something that's a little bit more softer in terms of the topics that we've covered previously, but it's essentially how to respond to cyber breaches. The specific focus of today is something called incident response planning. This is massively important. Without it, you haven't got a roadmap, you haven't got a way forward should the worst happen. I can give you a few little tips as we go along as well, but also we can actually refer it to something that's been in the news a lot recently, and that is the M&S breach, the Co-op breach, and the Harrods breach, and that will become sort of a little bit more pertinent as we get into it. But anyway, so the idea today is to have a look at planning for incident response across IT and cybersecurity. It's important to really have a structured approach that addresses cybersecurity incidents and also ensures organizational resilience. So let's have a look at where we are. So we're going to go through the basics of incident response. The key components really that make up an effective incident response plan, the different phases of incident response as well, and the roles and responsibilities of team members involved in the process. So being very clearly defined around this is something that's hugely important. So again, we can help with that, and that's something that's easy to do. So let's have a look then. Incident response is critical in terms of any aspect of cybersecurity. It involves preparing for, detecting, and that's the place that we really want to be in most of the time. We want to be in that detecting phase as opposed to anything else. But then also, if something is detected, how do we respond to that incident? It's going to help you by putting this in place. It's really going to help organizations mitigate damage, reduce recovery time. Recovery time is a huge issue, and ensure business continuity across the board. So it all plays into that same theme. Really, cybersecurity incidents can include things such as data breaches, malware infections, denial of service attacks, and insider threats. Understanding these types of incidents, or the types that can occur, is essential for being able to respond in terms of putting planning and preparation together. So the one that we come across a lot, obviously, as I put on here, are malware infections, and I'd say / ransomware, and then denial of service attacks. The denial of service attack essentially overloads whatever infrastructure that you have in place, so it can't respond, it can't work essentially. Malware infections are something that's coming in and it's there to disrupt the operation in a different way than just overwhelming it, but also it's going to compromise things like data integrity. So it's a real critical concern, and malware and ransomware can fall into that category. So having the incident response plan in place, it's going to help the organization quickly and effectively respond to the incidents. It's going to reduce the impact on the operations and protect, importantly, that sensitive data. As a byproduct, it also helps to comply with legal and regulatory requirements that we might have imposed upon us. So that could be, if we're solicitors, there's certain things that we have to do that the Law Society, for example, dictates. and that's a perfect example of that. It's hitting that compliance. So making sure the data protection angle is covered as well is extremely important. It protects sensitive data from being breached and lost during incidents. And that's something that the Information Commissioner's Office is very keen on in terms of making sure that's mitigated, but it doesn't happen essentially. So in terms of the key components, these are the sort of 4 elements I think that are relevant to talk about. So preparation. The preparation involves establishing and training an incident response team. It means developing policies and procedures for effective handling. So that's really the preparation. What would happen if this happened, X happened? What would happen if Y happened? What does that look like? And how does that play out essentially? So we move from that position to where we would always like to be. And I say that in the following realms, that it's detecting and analyzing what's going on at this moment in time. So ideally, when we're detecting and analyzing, we're not seeing anything. So, and that's the point of that position, is that's where we want to be. We want to be secure and we want to be protected. So there's things in place such that we can put in place, such as MDR, so managed sort of a service that allows us to see something is happening that is not normal and there is cause for concern. So, and that can really work 24/7. It can work away from you, and it can work in the background. If it sees something that is alien or acting in a way it shouldn't act, then it can essentially sandbox or stop that compromise element of the network or systems. And that's massively, massively important. So being able to detect it, analyze it, and secure it, or remove it, or put it away from everything else, or that part of the network away from everything else, is a massive, massive bonus for us to be able to do. And that's something that we can put in place, and the product's called MDR essentially. It could be 24/7. It falls into then containment. So if we can contain the issue, we can limit the damage from the incident and further prevent compromise. It preserves the data, the information for analysis, and that really comes back into the recovery as well. So in the recovery phase, we're getting our systems back online, we're getting our services and our operations running as they should, whilst, in inverted commas, addressing those vulnerabilities. So I said we're going to talk about M&S, Co-op, and Harrods. I think the biggest two in the press have definitely been M&S and Co-op, and they were hit by the same group essentially, and they had quite different outcomes though. So M&S have had a lot longer lead time to get their systems back up and running, especially to the public face, so their website, etc. Co-op didn't take quite as long, and the important factor here is the reason that Co-op didn't take quite as long is they did detect that something was going on in terms of ransomware, and they made the decision to pull the plug on their own IT. And what that meant was they were able to stop everything from moving forward in terms of the ransomware and what it was doing, contain their own data as well, and then work out or put that recovery plan into play. It meant that they were contained. So either someone there thought, oh, bugger, excuse the French, I'm going to pull it, or they had an incident response plan that allowed them to follow those steps and decide to make that decision themselves. And I think that shows the difference between the two parties. M&S didn't see it, or if they did, they didn't act on it. and I don't know if they saw it or they didn't. But that's something definitely that shows that if you can detect and analyze and contain, you can then get back up and running quicker. And that's important. I think the downtime for M&S costs them somewhere in the region of 150 million. And I expect that's still counting. The co-op numbers, I don't know off the top of my head. A, it's a smaller business, but B, the way in which they dealt with it meant that they could get back up and running a lot quicker. So that's why this is important. So what are we going to do? We need to put in place an incident response team. So establishing this team is crucial. So who is in it? What do they do? And how do they act? So when I say what do they do within the business already? Now, this can involve a dynamic team. So the first point of this is if someone detects something that is a user, and they might have had training on a phishing email, for example, things like that, that they think are suspicious, they actually become the first person in that incident response team. And that first person literally is going to make sure the people that need to be aware of it are aware of it. So let's look at it from a first aid point of view. Someone's fallen over, hit the floor at work. The first aider or whoever sees that person notifies that first aider, and that first aider is the first sort of action point. So again, that's where we are here. What's going on and the triage around that. So we can then, within that system or within the organization, define the roles and responsibilities so that they know what their tasks are now going to be, whether that's analyzing it, whether that's speaking to their managed service provider, if their managed service provider hasn't spoken to them, and it's then understanding from the plan what risks are involved now, and therefore what needs to be done. It's almost as well, it's almost worth adding this communication plan to it. The right people need to be told, and the stakeholders within the business need to be informed so that they can actually make the decisions as well. So it's massively important. It's not something we can just brush over. We need to know who we're communicating to. So let's start at the sort of detection and analyst side of it. So identifying incidents. So we're effectively trying to detect something that's doing a bad thing within our network, our IT estate. So we want to identify that as quickly as possible, but in real time. So that's why MDR software is so effective. It's telling us something's happening within the network that isn't a normal activity. And it could be something as simple as this piece of software that does X, Y, and Z is now not just doing X, Y, and Z, it's doing A and B. And it's something it's not done before, but it's now trying to do that. So knowing that the software is acting out of context and normality, we can then, with the software, MDR software, stop that piece of software from executing, essentially. So with that comes into that analytical side of things. Okay, what's it doing? Why is it trying to do that? And you know, what could happen there? And that brings us into that impact assessment and the severity of what's going on. So this is at the point where Co-op decided, okay, we don't like the look of where this is going. Obviously, it is nationwide. Everything has to go down. So it doesn't just affect the warehouse, for example, therefore we need to turn the warehouse's infrastructure off. This is affecting everything. So that's why that impact assessment is very, very important. So as we sort of said earlier, really, we've got that preparation phase. So that's where we start. We then have that detection phase, that analyst phase. That's where we always want to be. We don't want anything to happen. And then we move on to that containment and eradication in line with recovery and review. So I hope that makes sense there. So containment and eradication. So as I said or alluded to, there's pieces of software out there that can actually help us do that on a 24/7 basis. We want to contain it, we want to isolate it, and we want to isolate any affected part of our system, our IT estate, to prevent any further damage, ensuring that it doesn't spread any further. The eradication focuses on removing the root cause of the incident. This includes the malware, any vulnerabilities that have cropped up because of it, and compromised accounts as well to restore security. So that could be things like password resets, resetting multi-factor authentication. There's a number of barriers there that we want to put in place. These have to happen alongside the recovery side of things. So we need to make sure once it's contained and eradicated that we have something in place, a process in place to restore our systems. We need to get our systems back up online and the operations of the business working in a normal state after the incident occurs. We can then address the existing vulnerabilities if there's further ones, and we can start to learn from that process. So post-incident review, we can then sit down, go through exactly what happened, how it happened, where the gatekeeper was that this came through this attack. And we can then understand what was effective, i.e. the MDR, for example, and what wasn't affected. How did it get on there in the first place? Once we identify these, we can actually improve these areas to enhance for future incident response efforts and mitigating that risk even further. So, as we said earlier, it's the importance of these roles that becomes paramount to knowing who is doing what. So clearly defining these roles, it ensures it's efficient. It's not who's doing hang on what. It is a case of, right, this is mine, I do this is yours, you do this. And it will minimize the confusion across the team during the critical situation. The incident response managers oversee the incident response process, and they ensure that the protocols within the process are followed and the communication of those protocols is clear. Then analytical and specialists, so that's where people like we would come in. We can provide the technical expertise, which is critical for resolving those issues quickly, efficiently, and as permanently as can be. But also the communications on the other side of things going to legal advisors. So this could be actually dealing with the data breach and having to speak to the ICO. Who does that and how do we do that? The last thing we want is the ICO saying, oh, one of your customers is telling me that you've leaked their data or their data's been leaked during a data breach. We have to let them know. And again, that's critical for us to do, and it's required for us to do. So two of the most important factors along this line, this linear line of the attack, are collaboration and communication. We need to have the incident response team communicating internally, but also then going externally to the stakeholders. The collaboration helps ensure that everyone is aligned within the business and outside of the business and can respond swiftly to incidents while minimizing confusion. Again, it's not too many chefs, it's very specific, very linear. And then in conclusion, the planning is a really important stage. If we don't have the plan in place, when something does kick off, we're not going to have anything to refer to. Swift response, a well-structured incident response plan enables the organization to act quickly. The main aim of this acting quickly, like the co-op, is to minimize the potential damage from the incident. Then it's for the business continuity. Resource planning ensures the continuity of the business is upheld. It means that any challenges posed by the cyber threats or by a cyber threat, we know where we're going with it and we know how to get the business back online running. So I hope you've enjoyed that. It's not a massively long one today, which you'll probably be pleased to hear. What we're going to do though with that, if you email me, matthew.tucker@quintech.co.uk, and you'd like a framework, so this is like a template for this type of thing, email through to me and I'll send you out a template. If you would like that template to become very bespoke and specific to you, more than happy to help with that, and we can sit down and have a look at what you have in place to understand how this can best affect you moving forward. So drop me an email, matthew.tucker@quintech.co.uk, and I will get in touch with you either about the framework or putting something together that's a bit more specific for your business and industry as well. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak again soon. Thank you.